kind of like I didn't expect you, but thank you so much for coming on. I had a couple other folks that bailed, but I appreciate it very much.
Always, man. You know, I got
Coming
you.
on. We have one other panelist coming. I think Paris Smith is going to be joining us. Is that right? Yeah. Jay Moses was he got his confused, so he won't be able to join. And then yeah, he got confused. And then Noah Falk actually is on a flight, so he can't make it. He's got delays. So I'm going to moderate. Um, can you see? Hold on a second. No, I think David can see us here. David, you can see us, right?
I see you guys.
All right, cool.
Hi, David.
Hello, how are you?
We're going to start in, obviously everybody knows who I am. I don't need any introduction, but we're going to just go with our panelists. And David, why don't you start about you, your background, what you're involved in, and why you're involved in esports.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having me here. Ari, I appreciate you, for having me here as well. My name is David Chen, for people in the audience. My background, real quickly, I was an ex-managing partner at Deloitte, one of the youngest ones in the world. Brought in about $5 billion of transactions, IPOs, in my history of work the last couple of years. In the esports side, I was fortunate enough to invest into FaZe and be a partner advisor there. Fit Gamer, Cloud9 Training Grounds, ESTV, the North American Collegiate League, the Latin America League. These are all entities of our companies and our groups. And in our media side, we work with brands like Roland, Bare Knuckle Boxing, DeLorean, Cisco Systems, all as partners and sponsors in our different companies and groups. Our last part is have a management group. Our management group consists of 300 different athletes, celebrities, ranging from NFL players to gamers to movie people. So it's been a pretty cool addition in the space, and we actively advise some of the biggest brands in the world. I like pizza, so nice to meet everybody.
Nice. Thank you. Paris?
And I'm Paris Smith, formerly from Pinnacle, advising and consulting. Right now, my focus is more with esports, companies such as Rivalry, Odin, and of course the Pinnacle Solution product. It's Pinnacle has been passionate about esports, and I always say the reason why we were successful is because it was extremely authentic. And that's a word that when you talk about esports, it comes up a lot. The people within the organization were core gamblers, Magic the Gathering originally, but they were all gamers. And where we started off, it was basically, hey, can we put up some esports? I'm like, yeah, why not? $10 limits, $20 limits, all of a sudden $100, $50, $500, $5,000, $10,000 limits. And it took off. But we didn't do anything special, but it was the authentic approach. And everybody knew that it was gamers putting up esports for them. And it's just taken off.
So this panel particularly is about the future of esports and gambling space. And now that we know it's not really going anywhere, esports in general, then we're going to cover on the college esports and stuff like that. So I'm going to start with you, David. I mean, David, I know you've been involved in, because I look at you, both of the two of you guys in these panels as two separate buckets. I like to think of the gambling space as one bucket and the esports space as one bucket. And there's a lot of sort of bridges that have to go between these two buckets in many different ways. I think Pinnacle as a gambling product kind of took that on in a very organic way. And from your side, David, I see that you had some stuff going on in the collegiate levels. You had the FaZe clan intervention. You had all of these things, ESTV. Can you give us a little bit of a insight from your perspective on the level of where you are and what you see trajectory in 2, 3, 4 years time from the college levels to the professional?
I think when I look about esports as a whole, the giant valuations that I came in at 120 million, that now was 2.2 billion. I was sitting there in the face when that happened, as everyone here probably knows, right? So I've gone through it more than probably most people, right? In one session. I will tell you that from the ups and downs of what's going on, you've learned a couple of things. Number one, media is still king. I don't care if it's FaZe Clan. I don't care if it's a 4-year-old dancing around. The way that the current generation, 35 and 30 under, receive their information authentically is through their phones, atypical of our tradition, which is heavy, massive content. The second thing I realized is at the esports side of things in college was a lot of the college esport teams, even the leagues, there's no path to pro. I say this all the time. If you don't have a path to pro, what are we playing for? Oh, that's not the way esports is. It most certainly is for someone who invested in FaZe Clan, some of these different things. There's a second part of it. There's authentically giving them the jobs. How do we set up to where these people are giving these kids the right jobs to be part of every industry so they can understand it and grow? Because what we're learning is there's a huge disparity between people that understand gaming and gambling and understand the nuances of business together, right? So this big one. The third part I find really interesting about this is the educators themselves, when they're doing this, they're looking at our recruitment tools. How many people can come in and stay in my colleges? Now they're faced with something really interesting. Well, there's not a lot of viewership for college esports. I mean, this is not a secret. Everyone here knows this, right? The college esports, they don't even give half the time. The universities don't take it seriously enough to give the logos of that going from there. So why invest that on going from there? For 2 reasons. One, for branding, the future growth of your business. If you look at the current consumer base of gambling, all the gambling space as a whole, all the new ones that are coming in, all the new picks. So we talked to a lot of different groups here. You realize one thing is they're not attracting new audience members to gamble. They're losing it. And they're losing at a pace to these off-market guys like Stake and Better because they realize the content is pushed out more than somebody like JB Smooth, who's the face of your brand. No disrespect to JB Smooth. I love JB Smooth. But I'm just saying it's not real, right? It's not real because the guys who are making the decisions on the top part, who are putting together these media plays, they're not watching the YouTubes and the TikToks. And what is happening is because they don't know how to do that, then they're pitching something like college esports out. And what do we all know in the industry? Most of the guys who are pitching at the time don't even know what they're doing. They don't even play video games. So it's a complete lapse of understanding. Now that we have a current understanding when this whole situation collapsed and everyone here understands how to work on this, I go back to the same thing with everyone. It's about food and beverage. It's about having people coming in at your casino when you don't have a day, when Bruno's Mars is not paying, someone's not playing that day on an off night, and you have food and beverage and having people there. It's about having people coming there and staying at your facilities and working on that. And where do you gamble? On 2 ends. Prop betting on 101 if you're allowed to in your state and country or whatever it is, working on there. And 2, give them the experience. So when they play video games and playing slots are not the same thing. But when they play video games and they want to have the experience with most guys who do gamble, they want to be a preferred hotel because you have everything they need, which is the gaming amenities, the streaming amenities, the place to stay, and to everyone's point here, the authenticity that they feel at home. I think that's one that's going to win. I've been saying this for 4 or 5 years. I'll keep saying for 4 or 5 years until I do it or someone else does it. But you bet your sweet monkey I'm doing it. I will tell you that's a very important part of it, and I think that makes a big difference.
Well, Paris actually is, coming from the gambling bucket. You're not a brick and mortar. Or Pinnacles is still not a brick and mortar. It's an online platform. So, but the percentage of the esports wagering at this point is still quite small, considering everything that David said. What is it that Pinnacle has done? And and I'm sure you've said this many times, you're still competing with offshore illegal sites, etc. But you do have a steady base of wagerers on esports. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, which would add to what David was saying.
I think going off what David was saying, there's first of all, we work in verticals and not collaboration. And I feel like it's getting closer for the collaboration. The ecosystem is something that people don't understand. So you have, from the sports betting side, you've got the data well, the teams, of course. And I'm a fan of FaZe, by the way, FaZe Clan. So you have the data side, which is like the Grid, the Odins, and companies like that. They're critical because if you don't have the data, you can't create the odds. And then, of course, there's a bridge between the data and the organizations for integrity, because integrity is critical in esports. And then you have the sports book that actually can create and make the odds. So the success with Pinnacle was always their capability to monetize the odds that they made, whereby other companies, they put up esports and there's nobody betting it, number one, or they're using a program where it's a break even anyway, because they're either just taking stale odds from Pinnacle or Open or somebody and not actually creating their own odds and managing it properly. But what's interesting is within that esports grouping, and this is where I'm talking about the different verticals and how there can be a better collaboration. You will not get anybody that is a sports betting marketing person or even a excellent marketing person. They will not be able to push your esports marketing. You need people from the community. And that's where you can you have that job creation of a guy who's an esports fanatic. He understands everything about Counter-Strike, or somebody understands everything about Dota or League of Legends. And again, that's another point, I'm sure, David, you can agree with that. You've got too many people that call it esports. You can't say that hockey and basketball are the same. They're different. And so are all these other specific esports capitals. So, but if you have a person that understands that ecosystem of where do esports bettors look, where do they go, where does their channels of learning different things, and I'll give you a quick example about rivalry. But it's those people that are going to be able to grow esports and organizations. But the organizations have to understand you need an entire separate, very focused group of, again, authentic esports people that can push that product. Rivalry is headed by Steven Sauls, who's brilliant, and what he does for marketing is phenomenal. Pinnacle Solution is a provider for the risk management for that company. So there's always been a very strong relationship there. Pinnacle was always saying, well, I think they're cannibalizing our esports. And we did a crossover check, and it's literally less than 2 or 5%. Because where he goes, we don't even know that exists. Because he is esports for esports, understands it exclusively. He also went to the point of creating his team, created casino games. So those are becoming as big as the rest of his other products, because they made it for themselves. And as what a lot of people don't do is find out what other people want. They were asking their players, what are you looking for? What would you play? Where would you invest your time? So it's just, there's a concept of localization that always stands true whenever you're looking at getting into different markets. But in this case, for esports, you have to stay within the community. And that's going to be part of the secret of the success.
So, there's, like I said, and I agree with you 100%, because there's some people that were here at this event that are startup companies that's designing platforms, and they're gamers themselves for gamers. So it's coming almost from within the own industry. David, we were quickly touching on something. There was a gentleman here from U.S. Integrity, which covers all sports in general, and he was up on stage and he said, "Well, we're getting into esports too, and it's simple, it's just like a sport." And can you maybe enlighten us as to how do we change or make the sport or sport person mentality understand the differentiation? And there's of course similarities, but how do we make them understand differentiation moving forward, that they can understand esports is not really sports, it's almost a category amongst itself.
Yeah, to the earlier point, I think when we said about the sports side, I mean, someone says I want to do esports and we're doing the marketing consulting for them. It's like saying I want to be in sports. My first question is, what does that mean? Do you want to be in women's ping pong? Do you want to be in children's Minecraft? I want to be in esports. Is as relative to saying I want to be in esports. So everyone here that understands what I just said, what the question is, who is your demographic, and how can I hit your demographic? That's all I do. So for us, when you talk about that sport, an example is that crossover and integration. I think, as previously got, the authenticity is everything. The guys have to like it. They have to want to do it. I think that's what we've been able to do. Such great activations every month for, like, I don't know, maybe the last 4 or 5 years now, right? And different things we've been able to put together. And it's about them understanding the market. I think the biggest misconception about the 30 and under thing is, I'm 44. It goes like this. I go to Caesar's Palace, my dad went to Caesar's Palace. I like the Yankees, my dad like the Yankees, right? Then we saw FaZe, when they put together FaZe Atlanta, what they realized, nobody cares about the city anymore. They only care about the brand. So the biggest problem is the kids who are playing, they trust a Jake Paul, they trust a Drake. They don't necessarily trust the big casinos because they don't necessarily feel like they can understand and integrate, because it's not their model, it's their dad's model. Now, this is a very interesting thing that we've done in case studies where we've helped NASCAR start their whole entire esports league. That was us. We've had Rolling get into the whole entire gaming section. We're on their website. We've helped Cisco get into gaming. Like, we really understand that marketplace, because the big thing is people have to understand the market. You can't holistically approach it as just video games. Let's just gamble on that. That will take a little bit more time, because the reality is the regulation, things that would happen. And people aren't necessarily watching the viewership, right? What drives gambling is viewership. But when you put in someone like Tim Tatman going against Devin Booker, now we want to watch it, right? Hosted by Jack Links at CEC during the Super Bowl. That's what we do in all our events. So it didn't matter if we were doing the event with TwitchCon and literally the CEO showed up at the event that we did together, or us doing a Super Bowl event. It's the integration of all these cultures. And to my point from gaming, why this does matter and how this affects the gambling side of things, our group sign's a big deal. We just signed a deal with Bare Knuckle. We're doing all their gaming, all their media, all their streaming. We're looking for gambling companies. We're looking for hotels. Does gaming matter now? Right now, together.
I mean, you're working with, but I mean, when you got Drake and somebody else playing a video game, they're bringing all these people with them. So that's a different. I think it's a little different when you could just consider the organic player that comes in that's trying to look.
The thing is, the organic player doesn't work. We've tried to do it for all these years. I mean, look around. The only thing that works are the guys who come in like Drake, who put the stake and put the money in and won. We've been talking about this for years and years. I've had some of the biggest things that have actually worked. Not hypothetical, that work. And I will tell you, I will almost argue that at this point, organically is so hard to do because that generation doesn't try it as much as we do. They're not willing to do it. I hang out with these kids every day. I think the big celebrities, and the thing about celebrities, you can't just buy them anymore, because what happened with NFT, right? They can pick and choose. But I think they will bring in the crowd because it's cool. When Drake won that $4 million off the stake, it was cool because he had won $4 million. Whether it was set up, wasn't set up is irrelevant. It was just a cool thing to look. But the guys behind it for the book now has all these drivers going to stake because of Drake playing this game. And now what do they grow on their gambling side? That's the right marketing to everyone on the panel that's saying this, the right efficient way. That's how we were able to do it with NASCAR. That's how we were able to do it with Bare Knuckle. That's how we were able to do it with FaZe Clan, right? And Jerry buying into FaZe. I was literally on the call with them an hour before this. That's the future of content and gaming. So it's not holistically what is esports. Esports is a tool. It's more of the whole entire casino. You don't have to worry about esports. What you really want to worry about is how do you get people who also play video games like me, who aren't esport guys, but I have disposable income, to buy something, right? So that cross-breeding is important. Everyone who's 30 and 40 years old plays sports, video games. Remember, we all came in from the 30s to 50s and 60s from a beta tape to where we are now. We're unlike anybody else. And that's why I think that combination works way better than anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting you said about it. I mean, I think Paris, you have a different take on it because rivalry, you touched on rivalry and Steve Sauls. And did they necessarily take wages on guys playing video games like Drake and other big names?
No, but what they did do, they did use influencers early on. So in the same, not everybody can get Drake, let's be fair. But they did get some, whatever market they went into, they found the right influencers in that market, and they were able to really grow that market in a way that others weren't able to. One thing that's interesting is, I've been on panels where it's like, is esports just a thing now, or, is it going to be gone tomorrow? It is a thing. It will be a thing. It's really about the awareness that other people have, because esports exists. It's huge. It's massive. Not in the U.S. market per se, but globally, it's absolutely massive. So what I'd love to see is, and it's going to be part of that growing ecosystem, by universities having esports. They need to obviously become more authentic and invest more and understand it more. But just by having that, that's creating, it's more normal. They have colleges, and to categorize it as a sport from gaming in a gambling way is not, that's very difficult, because again, it's not esports, it's individuals. But it is a sport with regard to they're committed, they train, they're experts at what they do. So, I think just to differentiate that, it is a sport, although, the esports houses, I've been exposed to one of them. They had a chef, they had a person that helped them work out, and, they had a big, very big schedule, which is about 20 hours a game a day. But this is something that exists. So the awareness and getting everybody more comfortable with it. First, from the universities, you're saying this is normal. From the regulators, they can see that. Again, as we said yesterday, the New Jersey regulators, the Seth Shore has been a huge part of getting the Nevada Gaming Control Board understanding things. This is so important, because as that awareness comes, the acceptability comes, and then the understanding.
I just want to add to a point. You're so on point with the university side of things, right? So I have the privilege to teach at 6 universities, and I write the curriculum for a bunch of universities. And I actually, whether it's master's programs, bachelor's, certification, different universities, I've been fortunate enough to have, the head of Sony PlayStation is one of my students. And I will tell you what you said is 100% authentic. When we're writing these programs, the way I write them are differently. I write it, I mentioned again, for the guys who are playing to be able to go pro, the guys who are helping support to get jobs in the industry, and the third, to help the universities get the most amount of people coming in the highest amount of retention rate, because if that wasn't the case, Full Sail University wouldn't be kicking everyone's booty, right? So that goes to prove a point. On the second point, again, to Bear's point, what she was saying earlier, which is true too, I remember when we did a Super Bowl commercial, Planters Peanuts. It was in 2019. I had A-Rod and Charlie Sheen. Gary V and I put that together. Gary had it. We threw in the phase guys. They were there for 1 second in the background. And I put together that KPI to shoot it out. In that 1 second he was in the background, when he actually talked about it, he put on his social medias that he was there, he had more engagement than A-Rod and Charlie Sheen. What is the point of both these things? It's all about education in the know. If a kid that we paid X amount of dollars was at half a second in the background, had more engagement in sales than A-Rod and Charlie Sheen, were focused the whole entire time in commercials, that is enough of an indicator to show that with the right strategies, like they were saying, like we're all saying earlier, it can work. I just think it has to be the right strategies to consume all the markets. And then with the sports guys, then esports will come in, because a lot of these guys are still 13, 15, 18. They're still in the infancy stage. But the next 3 to 4 years, once you have them come in, they want to be part of your community. They like what you're giving them. They see that you care about them, the awards. Then they will actually start gambling with you guys and going on that area, right? They'll start working and gambling on this little side of things with you, because they're part of your community and you're part of theirs. So I see that as it's 100% true. It's education in college, and people want to do it.
David, I want to touch on what you're talking about regarding the future and the opportunities for people who are into video gaming, into esports, looking for work in that space. Interestingly enough, last night we had a mixer here at Agua Caliente's properties, and it was fascinating to me. What I took away, and I mentioned it this morning, was that there were people there that work with Complex Gaming, which is he's here at Chadwick, that were running the event. So you had people coming in that were at a desk. They took the entry fees. They did the bracketing. There was somebody making those announcements. That is something that could be a standard in a casino, and it is here in Agua Caliente. They do it every single week, every Wednesday night. They have a FGC gathering, but those people that are coming, there needs to be workers, and one day, hopefully, the casinos will permanently hire these people as ways to integrate to the video gaming and esports space. And so my question is, then, David, do you see that as an opportunity? And the same thing with you, Paris. I mean, you must have hired somebody at Pinnacle that was in the space already, that was able to connect with those people, not in the physical, I'm gonna come out and shake your hand and welcome to my property, but the idea of how do you like the platform, what can we do for you, some kind of service of a reach out that you guys may or may have not done, but that you did create a job for somebody in your place that was involved in video gaming, correct?
And well, and everybody that was involved in esports were involved in some form. But online it's a little bit different. What we had and what was a big boost for us was having somebody like Marco Bloom, who was a face of esports because of his success in Magic the Gathering. When people saw him at a conference and there was esports, anything around it, they would be like, oh my God, he's part of the tournament team. And another team member of his who also worked at Pinnacle, all of them had worked at Pinnacle at one point, but he was one of the #1 players in the world. So, having those people associated with you and available at a conference, we never really, we did have tournaments where, or different contests where somebody could win and go to the internationals, for example. And then Marco or one of the esports guys, or if they got an unlucky pick, it was me at the tournament to meet the player. But it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. So what do you think about that, David, as a trajectory for esport professionals to be in the casino realm and have a job in that space?
First off, I would be your teammate any day of the week, so I'll pick you. Are on the same page here. And secondly, it's very much a host role. Remember, it's a host role. Basically, you have a host who takes care of your high rollers and everyone else that's specific to have what they have to do. I say this to every casino. It's a host role that you have these guys coming in, so they're eating, they're staying, they're posting, they're retweeting, they're going to the nightclub to make it hot. Certain base nightclubs aren't as hot as other ones. That's what this is for, right? Their reach is in the millions before you set up a production and a TV shoot and get it done for 30 days and miss the next quarter. These guys are doing it within real time frame. And so I would think that in the future of anything that, when I look at gambling as a whole, the experience to me is really what keeps people there, right? I mean, you lose $4 million, you come back next month because the experience made you want to come back because you felt so good about yourself. Like, that's what we're in this industry, right? It's the experience. I think if you get a host that can experience over the VIPs and make them understand what makes your gambling different, I think that will work very, very, very well because it works in other industries. And I think the other thing is, again, if you look at it as these guys winning in that way, I think, and I know for a fact, that they all have their preferred hotels to go to or in Vegas, right? My friends will go here, my friends won't go there. The reason they'll go there is because of this activation. The reason they won't go there is because they never had an activation there. Like, this is really a thing that we deal with. We're running around Vegas all the time. And what you start to realize is the ones that reached out to give the best service has all the young guys bringing guys like me, bringing Logan Paul, bringing Jake Paul into these casinos and gambling the high net worth that you never thought was going to do, because the guy who's running Vegas is hosting and having coming there. So I would really think that, yes, the future is you can bring on people and have them work for you and run numbers and data. And the other thing I think is really important is a lot of these gamers have one thing that most people don't have. They're very data driven, and they're real-time data, right? They're real-time data with a fight online, extrajudicial, emotional, qualitative data. I think that will help a lot too when it comes to like this. but I think the future of any business should always look into business and opportunities areas that we're not in, and hire 1 or 2 people who are experts to understand that and bring that back to you so that you can understand and make it work.
Paris, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think, part of what I've seen become most successful when it comes to trading esports, right, is, you can't have again, it goes back to the different verticals of the sports book, of the esports options for Dota, Counter-Strike. Originally we're like, okay, we're just gonna price everything. If you know esports, you can price all of these. And in the end, it really got down to being more specific and having Counter-Strike people price Counter-Strike. And then that's where we got the real values. So again, you have a kid who's going to college, I'm looking into the future here. Kid's going to college, he's on an esports team, but he's getting an economics degree. And now he has an opportunity, maybe not be an esports professional, but he could work in a sports book and do the risk management for esports for that specifically. And I think, when companies, it's the awareness. When companies understand that it's specific and you can't just, it's not like, oh, we have a guy who, you need a Dota guy who is doing X, etc. And that is where the job creation for the kids that have the passion. And I think it's not just risk management. I think it could be marketing, all, customer service, anything, because they want to talk to the people that they can communicate directly and efficiently.
Well, we're pretty much out of time. Thank you very much, David Chen, for joining us. It's always nice to see you. I hope one day you'll join us in person. But we all got busy schedules. But I definitely appreciate you taking the half hour, giving us your input. Yeah, we'll talk more. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Mm-hmm.